Hello and welcome to the Sound Financial Group podcast. I am Paul Adams, founder of Sound Financial Group. I'm joined by Corey Shepard, who recently updated his camera settings. And as you can see, created an error. His shirt is now not displaying on the camera as blue. Seems to be an error. We know he didn't put on a red shirt, so has to be the only outcome. Good morning, Corey.
Hello. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are.
Wherever you are, we are going to talk about something, Corey, that just reminds me of South Park. We are not going to respect your authority, but we are going to respect your annuity today. We are going to walk you guys through the basics of annuities, how they work. You've heard about them. You've heard that they're great. You've heard that they're terrible. And we are going to show you both sides of that coin today.
And if you've heard that they're exactly medium, then put that in the comments too. I've never actually heard, but someone's out there.
Too hot, too cold, too big, too small.
Right.
Or just right. And usually, like most financial products, it could be just right if they are fit in the appropriate way into your financial picture. So Corey, would you just talk a little bit about what people are dealing with annuities, how they get proposed, a little bit about how they got a bad rap before we get into how they work?
So first of all, let's just get clear on what an annuity is. Annuity isn't a Roth IRA or a traditional IRA, although those two kinds of accounts can be in an annuity. An annuity is just a vehicle, a wrapper that you can set some different accounts in, set some different kinds of money in, and put some other different wrappers around it. I mean, let's go with a vehicle metaphor for a second. An annuity is a new truck that you can buy for your money and put a whole bucket in the back. And then there's lots of different kinds of trucks and kinds of options that you can put on to let the truck do a lot of different things. But it's lots of different kinds of money. So at its baseline, an annuity is going to do one thing, is going to give you a wrapper around that money so that tax is deferred until you take the money out of the annuity. So if you have an IRA and you put it into an annuity, that's one thing that you're not getting any additional benefit from, because your IRA already has a tax wrapper that you're not paying until you take the money out. So it's just like double wrapping paper from that standpoint.
No, if I may, I didn't mean to put you on the spot here, Corey.
Yeah.
But now Corey has been in the business since what year? What year did you get in the industry?
2007.
2007. And this is at almost 20 years. It's an enormously deep and complex tool that comes in lots of different shades. Right. And when asked to simply, how does it work? What does it do? Right. It pulls in all these different things. So we're going to take one at a time. That's a bit of a demonstration about how difficult these tools can be, both to understand and to explain. Mm-hmm. And so we'll take it away from Corey having to only use metaphors to explain it. And we are going to where? To the whiteboard. So
nice. I like it.
To Corey's point, I want you to think of something. There is an annuity, and the annuity is a vehicle. I think that's a great way to think about it. Let's just grab our black pen here, and we'll put the annuity. Now, the annuity has some taxation that comes along with it. Now, we're going to be talking at first about something called a non-qualified annuity. So if you guys hear anybody say non-qualified, what that means is it's not under any IRS program. Sorry for my slow speech there for the podcast listeners. I'm trying to write while I was talking.
This is one of my favorite parts about the financial industry. And by favorite, I kind of mean the opposite, where they label a thing based on what it's not.
Oh.
Right? So that means it's not a retirement account. Retirement accounts like your IRA, your Roth, your 401k, all those different flavors are all set up in a way that they follow the specific rules to be qualified as a retirement account. So everything else is a non-qualified.
That's right. That's right. So our non-qualified annuity, we'll talk about just how it works. Now, there's like 3 different levels. There's the house, if you will. So if we call this our vehicle, like a car, look at my great little car drawing over here. See that windshield shaping up, man. I don't think this thing's going to do very well in its crash testing.
Around the annuity, like because everything's in the car.
Yeah. Oh, we'll get there. I'm labeling them individually. Now, the car could be parked inside of a building, which we were not talking about yet. So leave that there. And then inside the annuity can be the contents, payload, what's it's carrying. So that's going to be what the investments are. So first, let's just cover what the annuity does. So an annuity, it is going to take our money. So if we're under age 59 and a half, we put our money in. Corey, do we pay any taxes while it grows?
We do not.
So our gains or interest are tax deferred. So we don't have to pay any taxes on that money while the interest grows. So put in $100,000, it's worth $200,000 at retirement. We pay taxes on the first 100,000 of our withdrawals, if we take it as a straight withdrawal. Okay. That is going to get taxed when we take our withdrawals as regular income. So it doesn't matter how those gains were created in the underlying accounts they're invested in, it's all regular income. And so let's capture that. That's taxed at regular income tax. So it's going to get taxed, that interest, just like the money you pull out of a 401k, the earning part. Now, if you take it out prior to age 15 and a half, it's a lot like IRS rules or IRA rules that you will pay a 10% penalty, but only on the interest part if you take a premature distribution before 59 and a half. Now, what people will say is the benefit of putting money in a non-qualified annuity is you get to defer the taxes, and isn't that great? But here would be my cautionary tale on that part. We're not going to get into math today. We're just going to talk about it in concept. That if I was going to compare an investment, I'm just going to use this little territory up in the upper right-hand corner for a second, Corey, that I could largely have my taxation at long-term cap gains and some deferral because I'm only rebalancing a certain amount of the portfolio. If I just bought a set of investments, an academically allocated, globally diversified portfolio, for instance, I'm going to mainly pay long-term capital gains and I'm going to have some interest due, but that will be lower tax bill. So if that averages, say, 22% during my earning years, but me deferring all the taxes on the gain inside the annuity means I'm going to retire in a high tax bracket and I'm going to be paying 32%, but all at the end, there might have been a lot of value to me just allowing that money to accumulate under my control with my ability to access it anytime. Because if that was a non-qualified investment account, I don't have any of those restrictions taking money before age 15 and a half and dang sure no penalties.
Of course, Roth type of taxation, full withdrawal, no taxes, our favorite kind of taxation. But the long-term capital gains is like the sweet second cherry in line. Like it's generally more favorable. So doing anything that would take you away from that into the federal income tax brackets is the thing to be done with great consideration and intention. There could be some reasons. There could be, but don't do it haphazardly.
Yeah, they need to be darn good ones because we're going to give up access to our money from current age to age 15 and a half. We're going to have irrevocably changed the taxation on any earnings that it earns inside of there. Though there are some benefits when it comes to distributions of annuities, which we'll talk about in just a second. If the annuity was annuitized, and let's use that same example where I have like 100K I put in and 100K of gains. So 100K of principal and 100K of gains. The 100K of gains has not been taxed yet. Then if I annuitize that over my lifetime, I will get something called an exclusion ratio. And it's going to assume because I'm taking these payments over my entire lifetime, I don't have to go through all my taxable amount first to get to my tax-free amount. They will give me a ratio across my lifetime, something like 25% of each of your distributions are going to be taxed.
Yeah.
So
that's, Paul, I think we're starting to talk about what happens inside the annuity once money is in there. Mm-hmm. And I should have said this at the very beginning. Maybe we can, we're not going to edit it in. You're just going to hear it now.
But if you want to, go back to the beginning and pretend that you heard Corey say this at the start.
Right? If you are listening to this podcast to get a really quick and simple answer, like, is an annuity for me? You will not get that, because that is not a simple answer, because there are so many different kinds of annuities. They practically should have completely different names, frankly. Like, they shouldn't just all be called an annuity because of how differently they act, different promises they deliver or don't deliver, and fee structures. And so that's, we're not going to just change the industry overnight, but that would be a good thing to lobby for, is like 3 or 4 very distinct product names, so you more quickly know what you're even talking about when you hear the word.
I'm going to take a slightly different shot at what you said, Corey. If you came to this podcast to see if an annuity is right for you or not, it's not. It's not. You're not the right person for an annuity. You know why? Because you shouldn't be listening to a podcast to come to that determination on its own.
Of course. Yeah. Gravity pulls you down. Of course. Yeah. Thank you. We're doing it that way. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Nice. Corey's a little under the weather today, so he's getting mean to me, but I like it. Okay. So now we have our annuity. We do have that benefit of maybe we get some exclusion ratio in the future when we take distributions, but again, we have to give up control to get that, because now we have to get lifetime payments. There's highly valuable reasons to have lifetime payments, especially to secure part of your income, like a pension from, say, it's like the one thing everybody like most admires about firefighters isn't their bravery. It isn't the cool trucks they drive around in or the equipment. They're like, that pension is awesome, or the 24 on, 48 off. Those are the two things people really look forward to firefighters. So very similar. People can use an annuity, produce a lifetime income, but it restricts our money a lot, because also, let's say you don't like the annuity you're in. What's your only thing you can do is roll it to another annuity. If you wanted a tax-free rollover.
Tax-free roll, right.
Yep. And you don't want to pay those taxes and penalties. And there's a few other things. We're going to cover this as we get down to that investments part. And then we'll finish off with the quote unquote garage you parked that car into. But the investments inside most every annuity, if they're investments that look like mutual funds, they're almost always overpriced by a lot. I'm going to give you an example. I reviewed an annuity this morning from a client of mine, and it was called a variable annuity. Now, a variable annuity has inside of it something that looks a lot like mutual funds, but it's technically called separate accounts.
Right.
They work a lot like mutual funds.
Why are they looking like mutual funds but not called mutual funds? It's though that folks don't need a securities license to sell them to you.
Yes. Not this same kind of securities license anyway. Not the same
kind of securities license to sell them. Yes, you do. This is the other reason there's several different types of annuities that have different licensing requirements. Like, those should be called completely different things.
Agreed. Anyway, agreed. No, keep going. Rant. I love it. Okay. Variable annuities looks like mutual funds, usually a limited set, like 8 to 12 choices of the mutual funds you could invest in. Some products allow automatic rebalancing, others don't. But just the underlying investments. Now, to give some standard, the typical portfolio we use has total investment level costs, not the advisory fee that pays Sound Financial Group, but investment level costs of like 0.27%. Okay. When I looked at this client's variable annuity today, the funds inside of it ranged from 0.5% a year to 2.1% 6% per year. Now, that's before something called the mortality and expense charge that is also in there. That is just the fund level cost. And you'll find things like international small cap or some even a U.S. small cap, like a heavily trading fund that they think they're doing a lot of research to get you better returns. We know that's not likely according to the academic research, but those are the ones that are hot closer to 2%.
You know, I've seen clients, I've met them, they have an annuity very similar to that, similar costs. And it was an IRA account. It was a 401k that they rolled to an IRA that they put into an annuity, and it had no other bells, whistles, or what we'll call safety features.
Yes.
So it
that's
what I
I'll
had
get
to
to
tell
next.
them, yeah, we'll get to that next. I had to tell them, like, this is you've been sold just a more expensive investment account, more expensive version of what you had before, because you're not getting tax deferral. You already had that with the IRA. It's the same kinds of things you could invest in elsewhere. They're just charging you more for it. So when you're looking for an annuity, if you're asking if it's right for you, asking what is it giving me that I don't have now, and make sure that reason is something that's really important to you. Otherwise, it may be just paying somebody somewhere more money and not actually giving you anything else.
That's it. Yeah. It could be like the result of not shopping well for something. You're going to overpay. So that's the next stage of something that can be valuable people add, is something on a variable annuity that would be like an income guarantee. They often call it a withdrawal benefit rider. Now, this can be highly useful. What it basically says is, over time, as the annuity grows, even if it drops in value, we're going to let you take a lifetime income of 4 or 5% off of this higher number. Now, the benefit I've seen in it is that it allows somebody to get into market-based investing with some of their money that they're a little more worried about. Like, allows them to have part of their plan be on a path to sufficiency, but it needs to be selected very carefully. We need to shop for the lowest fee of those types of programs and on the annuity itself. And last but not least, we talked about people make money on these, the advisors. But if you look at it, one thing you're going to notice is there's no sales charge when you go in. Corey, how do they get people into a product like this and not give them a sales charge up front? No, it appears to be no fees. I put $100,000 in. All 100 goes. Some of them give me a bonus. They'll put 107,000 in for me. How do they do that, Corey?
Well, there's no upfront sales charge, but there's something called a deferred contingent sales charge.
I love the acronym CDSC, contingent deferred sales charge.
Deferred, it's CD, right? So, so basically, they say, we're not going to charge you anything extra now, but if you want your money, if you want more than 10% of your money in any given year, we're going to charge you a lot, like way more than they'd ever get away with charging an upfront sales charge. Often in the first year, can be 7% is pretty common. Yeah, I've seen as high as 10. I don't even know if it's legal to do 10 anymore.
They used to be around at 12 and 14 in the first year. So it's very normal that surrender penalties on these are 8 years long, 7 years long. When we've used them
down by 1% a year until the very end, and then they fall away. Yeah.
And they fall away at the very end. The drawback is, though, we just talked about how the fees are higher inside of it, and now you're obligated to stay in to this tool. Let's say that tool is costing you 1.5% more a year than it ought to. And the only way to get out is to wait out that surrender charge and continue to pay that higher fee. That's why you want to be really well thought out before any money goes into one of these. Now, the other things that can be put inside of one of these is it could just be fixed investments, where there's a big insurance company and they're going to say, hey, we're just going to give you the same rate of return that's on our general account every year. And then there's another one that's called an index annuity, a fixed indexed annuity. They have a bunch of different. That's actually the problem, Corey. They have more names than they actually have products.
Right.
This is the reverse nuclear split dollar fixed income return according to the speed of the African swallow. Annuity. That's
Yeah.
what.
Yeah. And then every company has their own brand name for the annuity product that they release, like the
Aviator
the
Choice.
Assurity, the Continental Plus, it's all like they just went to a thesaurus and just were like, what's words for really good? And then
And
the
so
fixed annuity is kind of like a CD, except
Yep.
you're not getting it from a bank, you're getting it from the insurance company. You buy it usually a certain amount of time, guaranteed interest.
And then the indexed is on the movement of an index, and you get some percentage of that index's movement. Big deal. If you are considering an annuity, I'm going to go back to what Corey said at the very beginning. If somebody is selling you an annuity, you just need to come out and ask them, are you licensed to manage my money for a fee? And then if they say no, then say, what other products can you sell me other than this fixed annuity? Because many of these advisors, doesn't mean that they're unethical. They could be doing good work. At some point at the beginning of our careers, Corey and I, for some limited period of time, were both insurance licensed only.
Yep.
Although it's important for you to know if the reason you're getting proposed a product is because they can't propose any other ones. That's just fair for you to be aware of.
Fair. Right. Yeah.
And now, so that we have all these different kinds of investments that go inside of it. We're either going to be getting whatever the fixed rate is that the company gives us. We're going to be getting a fixed rate based upon the movement of an index. That's the indexed option. Or we're going to be in these things called separate accounts that look and act a lot like mutual funds, but more expensive. So if we have that annuity, we know the annuity can be non-qualified. Now let's look at if it's qualified, which means it is under one of those IRS structures, because the things that can hold an annuity contract are like a 401k. Now, there are 401k annuity products out there. Out of all of our 401ks, we took over as advisor of record on a couple of plans that are annuity-based plans. The difference is in those plans, the employers are huge. And as a result of the employers being huge, the costs on those plans are like next to nothing because there's so much money. It's very different. Your $100,000 annuity versus a $14 million investment in a company plan. They make it really skinny down in costs because they know they'll lose the 401k if they don't. In fact, they offer totally different kinds of separate accounts inside many of these 401ks than the same companies will offer inside their annuities. So it could be in a 401k. You could roll over a Roth 401k to a Roth IRA, or roll over a Roth IRA from not an annuity to an annuity. Same thing with the traditional IRA. Any of those. Now, remember, it could be a non-qualified annuity. It's not inside any of those. We parked outside.
Right.
But if we park it in the 401k garage, now we have all the expenses of an annuity, but now none of the accompanying tax benefits of deferral because that's already contained inside the 401k. But now we've added problems like the 401ks and IRAs come along with them, things like required minimum distributions that we're going to have to follow. We're going to have fully taxable distributions from the 401k, et cetera, or in the case of the Roth, we're going to have tax-free distributions, but because we just put in an annuity, we've got 8 years of potential surrender penalties if we try to take the money out. So our point here today is you might be proposed an annuity, and there can be really great reasons to get them. Guaranteed income, an amount of your money, having guaranteed investment results. Those are all really good reasons to have an annuity. But what people neglect is the one-way nature of going into an annuity means once you're in there, like you can't reverse course. Some annuities in some states will have a 10-day free look, kind of like life insurance. So if you got one in the last 10 days and you need to know if you need to get out of it, and you need to know in the next day or two, reach out to us immediately. And we'll do our best to try to help you.
sfgway.com. That's info@sfgway.com. I think and I agree. And I'd like to give an example of one like that I helped a client with that I think was a great reason. But this is where the more different features that are added and they have crazy names for it, and the bonus this, and the guaranteed this, and the phantom account. And it can feel like you talked about South Park, Paul. It's kind of like that episode where there's, what is it? The garden gnomes steal our socks, and then something happens and profit comes out, right?
Yes.
That's what it can feel like. But we have to be really clear that there are some crazy things going on under the hood, but there's benefits, and there's always a cost offsetting that benefit in some way that we've got to see if it's really the right fit for us. So I helped someone who was, towards the end of their relative retirement journey, older in years than average, and super risk averse. They had all of their liquid cash in savings accounts and CDs. And this was several years ago when CDs, like the best CD that they could find was like 2%.
5 years.
Yeah. And they wanted something that was going to do some amount better than that, but really not have a lot of risk of loss. And so,
totally.
Well, there's a thing called an equity indexed annuity that I think could work. Now, most of the time when equity indexed annuities are presented to folks, and if you're 35 to 45 or 50 and you've heard an equity indexed annuity, or you're about to get one presented to you, they're going to emphasize the upside potential, how you can have market-like returns. And Paul and I have studied this time and time again, and we know what's going on underneath the hood. In an equity indexed annuity, this is what's kind of funny. You don't own anything. You don't own any stock or any separate accounts. The insurance company just lets you pick the index that you want to follow, that they're going to give you interest on based on how that index does. So,
and they don't even invest in the index. At best, they buy options to offset their promise to you.
Well, that's how they do it, right? They have to buy some options to make sure that they're not getting in too much trouble if something goes crazy, but they're just taking the money and doing whatever else they need to do with it and not guaranteeing, but crediting a return. So when you take into account all of those different, like they have caps and floors on returns, I do like that equity indexed annuities, if you don't have all the extra riders for income or things like that, it's just growth. They generally don't have a standalone expense charge in there because it's just whatever you're getting credited. But if the market does 10, you're probably only going to do 4 that year. So basically I did all the calculations and showed this person that my estimate would be best case, they beat the 2% CD by 1% or 2 a year. But still, like, they can't get a return lower than 0 in any of those years. So some years they might actually do worse than the CD, but on average they probably should do a little bit better. Like, that was a really just kind of a reasonable, kind of not getting overly exuberant, just a very sober, like, here's probably what's going to happen. And that was perfect for them. That's exactly what they want in that situation. But someone who's 40, I think, is going to be disappointed by the net outcome of most of those index performances compared to what they could have in the stock market without all those constraints over a 20 or 30 year period.
Well, and we probably need to do a separate episode on the ills and evils and what can go wrong with equity index annuities. But I want to share one with the team here that we just heard from our partner, Jeff Miller, this morning.
Oh, right.
And that was, he was sent an annuity that was touted. One of our clients, which we never mind. Our clients, go talk to anybody else. Just bring back and make sure we check the math before the promises they've given you. Because in this case, it was touted, the annuity's great. We're going to give you stock market performance. Whatever it does, we're going to give you its return up to 20. Never a year that's less than 1% was kind of the promise. Well, Jeff, being the enormously thorough man that he is, he goes back and checks the index that they're proposing in that program. That index hasn't produced over 3% in like the last decade as average. So think about that. They're touting and selling him on, look, 20% cap, but the actual index they're going to put him in has no shot at getting anywhere near the cap. And when he pressed back on the company and kind of made like a little bit of like we're not contracted with this company, like, hey, I think you're doing wrong. They just wrote back and said, oh, that's in all the disclosures. I don't know why you have a problem with that. That's down in the disclosures, the very thing that you're bringing up. And it's like, just look at their brochure design. They are intentionally distracting us from those disclosures. So before you get into an annuity.
If the United States government raised the speed limit on every road anywhere in the country to 100 miles an hour, very quietly outlawed all cars, only bikes on it, right?
That's right. Or raise the limit to 300. It won't matter. There's like four guys who have cars that could go that fast.
Right.
So this is our biggest point that we hope would sit with you today. If you're considering an annuity, if your parents are considering an annuity, anybody you know is considering an annuity, get another set of eyes on it. Get a set of eyes on it that's financial in nature and not licensed to sell you the annuity.
Yeah.
And the reason is this. They're going to give you questions to ask. It doesn't mean that because your CPA says you shouldn't do the annuity, that you shouldn't do the annuity. You guys know we don't think you should take anybody's opinion. But what you want to do is get that other perspective to get the questions that you need to ask of the person that proposed this tool to you. And then you, as always, we haven't talked about this in years, Corey, about people being their own fiduciary, but this is time to be your own fiduciary. Stand up for yourself, get the questions you need answered to your satisfaction. And if you're up in the air, or if you've gotten one of these annuities and now you kind of need how do I manage the expenses on this thing and drop riders and at least let the money do the best it can inside this vehicle till surrender charges are gone, reach out. We'll give you a hand because we know these are difficult to navigate. We know that in the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of client situations we see every year, we select an annuity for a couple of them, not very many. And so that's where we want you guys to leave today, is that an annuity is not to be taken lightly. An annuity is a commitment meant, it could be a life. Well, here's the thing. Wouldn't you really check out a car really well if the lease was 8 years long? I'm going to be really happy driving this thing for 8 years. Hey, I want to find somebody who's been driving this car for 6 years, see if they still like it. Do the seats hold together and fall apart? That's the kind of thing we want to know. That's the kind of commitment you're making to an annuity. And the companies behind them, if they're the right company, they are built to totally fulfill on that commitment. But you just want to make sure you're getting the right commitment from them. And know that we're always here to try and support you in that choice. Why? Because we're out here. Corey is, Miranda is, and even I am committed to helping you be able to design and build a good life. See you guys next week.